It's bad. Anime.
I'm golden like that Millennium Puzzle, baby!
Hello, Yugi boy.
Wow, we finally get to use that voice and have it make a modicum of sense.
Finally. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm John.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide,
Is this anime bad?
And today we are doing something a little special. We're talking about Duelist Kingdom from YuGiOh, the first season of YuGiOh, technically season 1.
We're doing very interesting when we're talking about a particular arc of a show.
Yeah.
And this is your idea. You shot me out of the blue, and I'm just like, you know what? Let's just do it, and let's go kind of in raw here, because luckily Duelist Kingdom is something we both grew up with, and it's funny. Our relationship with Yu-Gi-Oh is very funny, because I remember in like early high school, I think it was early high school, when 2 or 3 of our friends suddenly found their decks, and it consumed some of our friends' lives for a while.
It really did. It still does to this day for one of them, I think.
Like for like 1 or 2 of them, it's still pretty a heavy factor in their lives, which is amazing. But yeah, we just kind of fell in love back with the card game and started watching the show again. And that's where I went on my own divergent path here, because I did my thing where I researched. Because at the time, it's around the same time I fell in love with Super Sentai after figuring out that Power Rangers is from a Japanese show. So I tracked down the original. I got heavy into Yu-Gi-Oh! And we'll talk about this a lot as we go on. I am a Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga guy because, my God, just seeing the transition from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga to the first anime they did by Toei, affectionately called Season 0.
Right.
Then seeing the Japanese version of the show we're going to be talking about today. And then seeing the actual show we're talking about today, because we're explicitly talking about the dub here. We're talking about the 2001 4Kids dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. And we're talking about the first arc, Duelist Kingdom. It's around 40 episodes.
Right. And we're basically today, also sorry to stop you there, but today, I guess the main goal for us in this conversation is to figure out really if Duelist Kingdom specifically holds up to this day, and if we can maybe check our nostalgia at the door a little bit when assessing it. Spoilers. I mean, we can't, but I mean, I think we just got
a little bit. I can a little bit because I have something to compare it to. I have several different iterations of the story to compare it to, so I am checking my nostalgia a little bit. There are times where I can't. Whenever I hear Dan Green perform the voice of Yugi, or Yami, as he's called in the English dub, I lose my shit, because Dan Green's smooth, chocolatey voice is everything to me.
It really is. I mean, there are a few times where I feel like nostalgia gets the best of me when talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! But I felt like it would be great to just really zero in on Duelist Kingdom, because Yu-Gi-Oh! As a show, kind of talking about does it hold up, is a little more difficult, because it's got so many iterations. It just had a new one come out as well. It just has like a lot of different layers, like Battle City is like a whole nother show, basically.
That's the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! And also several longer running shonen shows. There's various ups and downs in quality that make it hard to really judge objectively.
Absolutely.
So I think, honestly, for the shonen stuff on our end, going arc by arc is a much more concise way to do things.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also like a little easier, because when you got a show like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even, God forbid, like if we ever talked about One Piece, like there's just way too much material to talk about.
We're not talking about One Piece.
That's fine. I do not want to. I have no desire. But like Yu-Gi-Oh! As a show just has so much content, so many episodes, so many different like ways to play as well that change over time, that it would seem really reductive if we tried to sum up the whole like entire franchise. So I think starting with Duelist Kingdom is a good place, and I think we could even expand on this eventually if this is a really fun time, which I anticipate it being, because when is it ain't?
Exactly.
Then maybe we can like expand on it in the future and keep doing more arcs in Yu-Gi-Oh! History and see if those hold up,
or
depending on the time period.
And any other shonen show we have in mind that's just too long, we remember watching, it's like, oh, let's look at this arc and see how it holds up.
Yeah, but I specifically wanted to do this one because I feel like Duelist Kingdom specifically has received a lot of, not necessarily backlash from people nowadays, but it's received a lot of like, that was weird, right? That's interesting. I can't believe they played the game like that. That's not how you play the game. I feel like there's been a lot of people going back and criticizing it.
A lot of criticism from this show comes from the card players, and it comes from people talking about the game. And see, that's something that's hard to relate to for me, for a few reasons. A, the card game was very new at the time.
It was.
And let's also not forget the big elephant in the room. Yu-Gi-Oh was never supposed to be about a card game.
Yes.
Kazuki Takahashi, rest in peace, what he did, he wrote a manga basically as a love letter to all things gaming, because he was a guy obsessed with games in general. Tabletop RPGs were his favorite, but he loved card games. He loved, like, he loved every he loved top games. He loved like so many. He loved marbles. He loved jacks. He loved everything that could be considered a game.
Yeah.
So with that, he took his level of obsession with gaming and threw in a few weird influences. Particularly, I forget the name of the manga, but it was a manga about this. I just watched a video on this too. Basically, there was like a very tiny kid who kept a bandage over his forehead, and it was real. He had a third eye, and apparently he was actually some criminal from ancient Egypt. And
sick.
So, and remember what happened with Yugi when he was transformed into Yami? The big Millennium Eye would appear on his top of his forehead. That, and he took a lot of influence from Devilman here.
Yeah, and also that's some like that third eye. That's some Yu Yu Hakusho shit right there. That's some Hiei stuff.
Yeah. But the thing is now because now I'm coming full circle on this, because in a lot of ways I can check my nostalgia at the door, but I also have to check some of my biases too. Because when you look at the relationship between Yami and Yugi, it is a similar to some depiction of Devilman, between the relationship between Devilman, Emon and Akira.
Right.
So, like, because in the Toei version and other versions, like, the dynamic between the two people was different. Well, the Toei version is, like, the funniest one of all, because, spoilers, who haven't seen the Toei version of Devilman, what happens? Bounce, you'll laugh at this because you've seen Devilman now, you know. Imagine, in the first episode of Devilman, Amon kills Akira, straight up, possesses his body, then falls in love with Miki, and then protects her for 42 episodes.
Bro, that's wild. I feel like that would be like what would happen if Yami just decided in the first episode. That sounds like some season 0 Yu-Gi-Oh, where like Yami would like kill Yugi, overtake his body, and just start trying to bang Terra.
Yep.
For the entire show.
So, but anyway, I digress.
It tracks.
Anyway,
it really tracks. That's a good analogy right there.
Yeah, but the relationship between Yami and Yugi is like, between the darker half of the heart and its own thing. It's very Devilman-esque in that regard. But also, the biggest thing is Ryo Bakura. Ryo Asuka. There's a lot of similar characteristics between those two. Very similar. So
wow, Bakura. My God. I almost forgot about Bakura.
You can't, because he's basically the primary antagonist of the entire series.
He really is. Mm-hmm.
He is, he really, for many reasons he is. In Duelist Kingdom, we don't see a lot of it.
Yeah.
Duelist Kingdom, we get a very interesting... Okay, where do I even start with Bakura? But I'll backtrack. So basically, Takahashi, to my main point, he took Devilman, took from the other manga, and I'm forgetting the name of it, starts with an M. Someone in the comments correct me, or call me a noob and a pansy for not doing my research for the Yu-Gi-Oh episode. So he took all of those things, and he made this manga, which was kind of a light horror manga in a lot of ways. Because what happened was, Yugi finished the Millennium Puzzle, and he was a meek kid, always getting bullied, always getting beat up or whatever, but he was just trying to make friends. Eventually, he became friends with, who will go by the dub name, or Joey and Tristan.
Right.
He became friends with them, and then he finished the puzzle, and out came this dark spirit that would possess him and save him from people bullying him. And in the manga, he would just kill people or drive them insane, or like a lot of lighting them on fire in the manga.
Yes.
So we get that kind of protectorial relationship here. And in the original Japanese version of this anime we're talking about today, there was a lot more dialogue between Yami and Yugi as things went on, between the dark half and his lighter half. Mm-hmm. This, in the dub, they do something really interesting here. Because when Yami Yugi takes over Yugi, and you hear the internal monologue, it's still in Yugi's voice, the kid.
It is.
In the Japanese, it's Yami.
Interesting.
So there's more interplay between the two halves of the personality. They're more working together. In the dub, it's kind of interesting because it feels like Yami is just this thing he can't control.
Yeah, which is very interesting that whenever he's about to duel, number one, because I don't believe he duels that many times as regular Yugi in this show. Period.
He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it in the Duelist Kingdom
at all. Really, like because then eventually
like, he did. He did actually in the finale. He did.
Oh, in the finale, yes, against Pegasus. That's right.
Yeah,
but
because
throughout, like Yami's like taking over his body and like dueling for him. But the crazy thing, you know what? I think when I was a kid, when I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh for the first time, and especially Duelist Kingdom era, I was like, I mean, I know it's some kind of dark spirit, right, in the Millennium Puzzle who's like taking over and like dueling, right? But I always thought like the person that he transforms into was himself, but just with a bit of a darker edge, right? Like his his brows are a little more like pronounced. He's got just more confidence about him. So I thought it was just like an internal spirit that just activated something in him that he was like, oh fuck, now I'm gonna fucking,
that's a great point.
I know I'm gonna bang. But then I realized over time that I'm like, Yami just looks the fucking same as Yugi.
Yeah.
Which makes no goddamn sense to me, honestly. I didn't even think about this until like maybe a few years after I watched it the first time, but I was like, yeah, that never really made sense to me about how he just looks the same but taller and just like a little more confident. It's the same character design, but like
they explain it as it's going on.
Do they?
Yeah, no,
did they?
Yeah, they make it clear that they make it clear that Yami's either depending on the dub or the sub, they make it clear he's either an ancestor or a reincarnation.
Ah, okay, that makes a little more sense. But either way.
Yeah.
In Duelist Kingdom, right, you get a lot of transformations. And I think to kick off Duelist Kingdom, the thing that really kicks off the first season, right, I mean, Yugi beats Kaiba in the duel, obviously, with Exodia. That's the big thing.
Which is a haste. That's like one of the big... that happens in like the middle of the first run of the manga. So it's not even a huge thing in the manga. But that's what sparked the whole craze because people read those couple of chapters and said, we want more of the trading card game. And we want it now.
Right.
So that happened, and next thing you know, we have this whole franchise because of those two chapters.
Yep.
So the people who were doing Duel Monsters like, all right, we're making an anime explicitly about the card game because the manga is now doing mostly the card game. Let's run with this. This is a great starting point, which it was.
And also, the cards for merchandising sell great, obviously.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Kazuki Takahashi wanted to make a horror manga, like a light teen horror manga about gaming, and then he wound up with a multi-billion-dollar trading card game franchise out of it.
It's insane how that happened, honestly.
It really is.
Good for the guy. He was a great guy. But the show, I mean, when the show came out, I remember actually receiving a VHS sent to my house of the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Nice.
Maybe it was in 2002 or 2003. I didn't order it. It just got delivered to me. I think like maybe, I don't know, maybe my mom filled out something because she was like, oh, this looks fun or whatever. But I got a VHS and it was just the first episode and I popped it in the VHS player and I watched it and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need to buy more. And so then obviously that started the whole craze and I started watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Every week. And from that first duel with Seto Kaiba and like Exodia, like I was hooked 100% from there. Looking back on that duel, I think that duel was like, I rewatch it sometimes, and I think it was really fun. It was a great introduction to the card game, a great introduction to the anime. And then, of course, we get set up at Duelist Kingdom, which is, you know, Yugi's grandfather's soul gets sucked through a television. Makes sense. And Pegasus Millennium Eye is winking at him and just sucking his grandpa, you know.
Off
and,
what?
Off what? What was that?
Cool.
And... so Yugi's got to go to do this Duelist Kingdom tournament to get his grandpa's soul back. And of course, his friends go with him. Joey goes because he wants to get money. And I had to look this up beforehand of what exactly he needed to get money for.
Oh, it's for his sister.
For his sister, right. But it's for his sister's eye operation, which for some reason I thought she had cancer. And I don't know why I thought it was that dark. I have no idea why it was that dark.
Well, to be fair, I think in the original manga it was something like eye cancer. Not eye cancer. It was something like cancer in the original manga. Like it was darker.
Okay.
Season 0 made it a lot. I think 'cause I probably should, because I know we watched season 0, a lot of it together at some point, because basically people would come over to my house after high school, and once we ran out of things to talk about or people wouldn't shut up, I'm like, all right, season 0, here we go.
Yeah, here we go, baby.
But yeah, no,
But yeah, I thought it was it was something more devastating, but like I read that recently because I wanted a refresher about like what was he fighting for exactly for his sister. And when I heard it was for her eye operation, I was like, did he just pay for LASIK for her? was this whole thing just so she didn't have to wear glasses? No, but of course there are a lot of scenes of her in the hospital and shit. It's pretty bad. So yeah, he's going for that. And so they set out all together to go to this island. And when you think about Duelist Kingdom as a concept, it is very interesting when you break it down that Pegasus, Maximilian Pegasus, a billionaire, invites a bunch of young teenage boys to his island and makes them all fight each other. And My Valentine. It's kind of the most Jeffrey Epstein thing that I've ever heard.
Okay, so maybe the show doesn't age well.
Maybe not, but it's a cool concept, though. I mean, other than that, it's a pretty cool concept. And the whole idea of Duelist Kingdom is that in order to, get to the end and get into the finals, you have to gain 10 star chips, and everybody gets a glove, and they get those star chips.
Star chips on the wrist, yeah.
But the Wild Wild West part of this whole thing is that you don't have to get them via duels. Like you could just steal them from people. It's kind of crazy.
If you realistically wanted to, you could just kill them and take your star chips. Yeah,
you could. So it sparks this kind of like Lord of the Flies kind of idea. And speaking of that, enter Weevil. Because one of the most famous scenes in early of Duelist Kingdom.
You know exactly what you did there.
Yes, I do.
Lord of the Flies, Evil Underwood.
Weevil Underwood throws Yugi's Exodia off the boat into water on the way. So Yugi's trump card is completely X'd out of the show at that point, which is probably a good thing because it was broken. And so then he has to go through Duelist Kingdom and fight all these different characters and personalities. And maybe like we can talk about these duels a little bit because they're a little wacky.
Well, that's the thing. This is where I'm a little more forgiving than most people at Duelist Kingdom, because you have to remember the context here. Because Duel Monsters had no choice but to follow the manga. Takahashi was making up Duel Monsters as he went along. He had, he basically accidentally created a card game, and he was trying to flesh out the mechanics a little bit. But here's the thing. I never minded like the wackiness, because, the big criticism is they don't follow the rules. A, they didn't exist yet, and B, the rules are not what mattered here. What mattered is the strategies and how people tried to tackle their opponents. And it was about how you organize a deck. I mean, it was a great duel with between Joey and Rex Raptor, a very early episode.
Yes,
where the duel they had was all about because Joey's whole progression was great because it was tied to his deck was tied to his character.
Right.
So basically, Joey had a deck full of monster cards, which is essentially useless. Because in Duel Monsters, you have to combine it with magic, spells, trap cards, and effect monsters as well. And basically, it's an allegory for Joey being a brute who charges into everything without thinking.
Exactly.
So it was completely tied to his personality. I didn't make that realization until I started talking.
That was it was a very eloquent realization, actually.
But anyway, and Yugi is there to be the rational, to be the Joey's voice of reason. So he's the one who says, hey, here's some magic cards, here's some trap cards, and effect cards. And, so now we get to see Joey in real time develop strategy. And yes, that's not how Time Wizard works. The card Time Wizard does not age monsters up or down. He doesn't do that. He doesn't turn Baby Dragon into a Thousand Eyes Dragon. That's not how the card
Baby
works.
Dragon!
But here's the thing. The narrative there makes total sense.
Yes.
And basically, the game is an allegory in a lot of ways. And now you could also put Time Wizard as an allegory for Joey maturing. Because he goes from this tough bully into someone who's trying to desperately try to take care of his sister. There's a lot of things you can paint here. There's a very clear picture. So all these duels are tied to the character. I don't give a shit about how the rules work. It's basically an action anime. And the card game is a substitute for actual combat here. At least in this part of the show. As the show goes on, especially in Battle City, we actually say, all right, let's get the rules in check here a little bit.
Sure,
But,
right.
But all these Duelist Kingdom episodes, they focus on strategy and being cunning. There was...
See, that's a good point. I think that is glazed over a lot in favor of, you have to do this to do that, or you can't just say this, or especially because of like the field mechanics of this Duelist Kingdom one as well, because every time they're on a different field it changes the mechanics a little bit of the game, but not in a way that is completely spelled out to you.
Exactly, and that's the thing. They play that as a narrative a little bit when you go into a field and you don't really know what you're doing. You know what I mean? You don't know how the field's going to impact you negatively or positively.
Right. Like when it's like when Yugi's dueling Mako Tsunami, and it's high tide, and he's like, "Oh, what if I just fucking destroy the moon? Maybe that'll relieve the high tide." And the thing is, sure, like that's not exactly like part of the game. You can't like do that.
No.
But in this particular instance, it is a strategic way of thinking, and I kind of like actually keep it similar to like somewhat of like a mech anime, like an Ava, like an Ava, when they're just like. Like a different angel comes up and they're trying to figure out strategy of, okay, this one has a different ability. How do we kind of work around that?
Yeah, how do we counteract it?
And this season does a good job of doing that, but it doesn't do it exactly, conventionally, like within rules or anything. You can't just like say shit like that in the game these days. But in that particular Wild West version of Yu-Gi-Oh, it was totally fine for him to just destroy a moon and for him to kind of take the game in his favor with that strategic move. And that, once again, to your point, kind of shows how Yugi thinks, and that he thinks outside the box a little bit and does some things that, are unconventional and you wouldn't necessarily think about.
He has to be cunning.
He has to be cunning.
And also, think about it. He solved the Millennium Puzzle.
Right.
So they established immediately that this kid is a genius at problem solving.
Yes. Yes.
His only struggle is confidence. And in the dub, the version we're talking about more, they really play up the whole metaphor for him maturing. Maturity is a big theme here, apparently. But yeah, because Yami Yugi, especially in Duelist Kingdom, because they probably didn't know where they were going with the story yet, because this was getting dubbed probably around the time while Battle City just started, so they didn't know where they were going. So they just kind of assumed that Yami was just a metaphor for Yugi transforming and like gaining that confidence in himself. They didn't really think out the whole ancient Egyptian spirit angle yet. That wasn't there.
Right.
And there was so then that's the thing. So the only thing Yugi's lacking is confidence, and essentially the whole anime, especially the 4Kids version, the whole thing is Yugi finding his journey to confidence.
And that's the thing about this specific season of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I think is a bit different than the others, because this season, although the game mechanics are kind of in question, I think everything else in terms of storytelling and character building is the strongest that it is throughout the show, I feel like, because when you do the character building of Yugi in this season or character building of Joey in this season, I feel like really for the rest of the show, at least in my perspective, there's not much else that's really built up upon that. It's very much like it's like an 80% start, and then the rest of the show is like the last 20% of build and character. And obviously there's maturity there and whatnot, but this first season, I think, does a really good job of at least setting you up very nicely for their character progressions that kind of take a back seat to the game mechanics after a few seasons.
Oh, they totally do. There's only one arc or two after this that really delve into characters this deep.
Right.
And they actually dive wildly into spoilers, the Pharaoh. Spoilers, Yami. They really dive into his character hard in the Waking the Dragon's filler arc.
Oh yeah, the Waking the Dragon. I weirdly enjoyed that when I watched it as a child, but I have yet to watch it since.
I actually didn't get that far as a kid. I probably stopped after Battle City as a kid. I was like,
I just liked it. I think I just liked it because everyone was on motorcycles. That's what probably inspired 5Ds. Honestly,
it totally did. I've been saying that for years, but no. But to your point, this season, this arc really focused on these characters more so than the card game. The card game was a means to convey who these characters were and tell their stories. So that's why, this season is probably the strongest and most character-driven instead of game mechanic-driven.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a very refreshing change of pace, especially compared to later seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is all about the game and has very little to do with these characters.
Yeah, I mean, when you have when you go to Battle City and have an 8 fucking episode duel with Merrick, it's kind of
but this show gets
kind of
guilty.
different.
Yeah, it's oh god.
But
Yeah,
this one,
show...
I tended to like there weren't a lot of like more than 2 episode duels in this entire in this one. I don't think
the finale got a little long. I think the finale was like 4 or 5.
Finale was long, and then the finals were long. Like Joey versus Bandit Keith, which is probably my favorite duel of the season, and Bandit Keith is probably my favorite character of the season, because imagine just this island of just teenage boys and My Valentine and Jeffrey Epstein. I mean Pegasus. And just like this one random grizzled adult who was Bandit Keith,
beating up kids and taking their star chips.
Which is just so funny how it worked out like that. But like that duel's a few episodes, and a few of the duels like range in episode count, but a few of them, like for example the one with like the twins in the maze or something like that, is like an episode.
That one was really good. That was one of my favorites as a kid.
It was a fun one. It was a good time. Like, and I think a lot of these episodes, when you go back to them, the characters they flesh out very well in terms of the main characters, but also the villain characters are really fun because they shift around a lot.
That's the thing, and Pegasus is a very interesting villain. Because how Duel Monsters for him started, he kind of just stumbled into this thing out of his control. He started painting these Egyptian... We learned he just started painting a bunch of like shit he found in Egypt, and he made a card game out of it. And that affects him because eventually he gets access to Shadi, who was, again, much bigger deal in the manga, but he appears in Duelist Kingdom. Doesn't really appear much after that, I think, actually.
Yeah, not really. I don't really know of him that much after that. Wow. Maybe it could be in the last arc?
Not really.
Not really even there?
Not really even there, no. He's a background player, but he was a big deal in the manga. But anyway.
Oh, damn. Shadi got a big booty.
Yeah, but... I'm not going to say pause the episode, but I want to. Anyway. So, I forget exactly how it happened, but Shadi eventually jams the Millennium Eye into Pegasus. He jams the eye into him, and then suddenly he's consumed by like this, by this whole card game. It completely took over his life. Mm-hmm. And now he's like taking souls and digging holes. He's, doing whatever.
Souls.
And he's consumed because the Millennium items, a lot of the spirits that can, what we learn is there's dark spirits holding, like, trapped inside these things.
Oh, yeah. Like Bakura's spirit.
Yeah. And also, the one Pegasus is an evil tendency. He's not an evil spirit, but it's getting brought out of him. Mm-hmm. He actually, from what I remember, it wasn't really a spirit that brought out Pegasus. At least it wasn't revealed in Duelist Kingdom. It was just heavily implied the Millennium Eye made him the asshole.
Yes, right.
And we saw that concretely with Bakura and the Millennium Ring. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, I have to get to Bakura a little bit because, again, he's basically the main antagonist of the manga. He's Ryo. He is Ryo Asuka to Akira, meaning, and Ryo is Ryo to Yugi in this.
Right.
But there's the great episode where they have the duel between Yami and Yami Bakura, and the characters take, like, the properties of the monsters. So you have Yugi in the Dark Magician outfit. You have Tristan.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, Tristan has like the whatever, like cyborg, like gun thing, whatever it is.
Joey's a flame swordsman. Yeah.
Yeah, and flame swordsman.
That was they basically adapted the final battle of the first major arc of the manga, which was Yami Yugi versus Yami Bakura in a tabletop RPG. And in that, you have the iconic scene where Yugi turns around, looks up at Yami, and goes, "Oh, so you're the reason I black out and kill people." That was in the manga. and then Yugi in the dub was like, "Oh, you're that thing. You're the other part. You're the other part of me. The part that takes over me when I duel." And Yami's like, "Yep."
I was like, "Hey, that's me, boy."
In the manga, it's much more dramatic, where it's like, "I think you're a good dude, but I'm not sure."
He's like, "But you kill people for me?" That's kind of weird.
But to be fair, that one guy was trying to rape Taya, and you stopped that. So cool.
So I guess you're nice.
The manga gets dark, dude.
Damn, it sounds like it. Jeez.
Even in the original version of this show, in the Japanese version, there was one guy, like, in the dub, they try to play it like the guy's trying to mug Taya or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in the original Japanese version, he has a video camera in his hand, and he does like this, gives Taya the up and down, and gets her into a corner.
Oh boy.
So his intention is very clear in the Japanese version what he wants to do. Jeez. And this is this show. So Jesus Christ. They cut that out, obviously.
Yeah, right. Probably.
They did. Yeah, they cut out a lot of sex and violence and guns and shit in this show. I mean,
makes sense.
But this show also, the reason why I really wanted to stress the dub of this, because the original Japanese version of the show did this too, but to a tiny bit less of a degree. Because the manga was clearly about all this ancient Egyptian shit. But later on, all this sci-fi bullshit got thrown in there with like the dual discs, the Kaiba's
Kaiba Corp,
all that kind of stuff, and then the Waking the Dragons arc, the Legendary Heroes arc, all these arcs. You know, it basically made it an Egyptian sci-fi kind of thing, or like an Egyptian weird game show with a bunch of sci-fi shit thrown in.
Yeah, it was like Egyptian, like but techie, like modern Egyptian tech kind of stuff like that.
The dub had it in reverse for a few reasons, especially because of the soundtrack. Because the entire soundtrack is completely composed for this dub. Mm-hmm. It has no similarities at all to the original Japanese score for the anime.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, I like the dub a little more just because it's like those themes are memorable. Kaiba's
also,
theme,
holy shit, the main theme for Yu-Gi-Oh, the American Yu-Gi-Oh version, is such a banger. Oh my god.
It's an epic, heroic...
It's so good.
It has elements of techno in it as well. That's what I'm trying to say, because the dub especially feels more like a sci-fi show with a bunch of random ancient Egyptian shit thrown in there. You know what I mean?
It does. Because like it's weird because like you kind of forget that it's Egyptian slight like influence there.
Yeah.
Until like the music at some point goes like ooh, and you're like, oh wow, I forgot that it was Egyptian, but now I remember.
Exactly. Yeah, but that stuff was a little more present in the Japanese version. But this is why the show is so interesting to me, because this is the first time on Bad Anime where we covered a show that is where the dub, not since probably My First Girlfriend is a Gal, did we talk about a show where the dub versus sub matters this much.
It does matter a lot. I mean, because as you said, it matters so much more because it's not even just a dub. It's like completely different sound for the entire show.
It's an adaptation.
The audio is different. The audio everywhere is different. It's just the animation is the same.
And they change a lot of plots here around, because the whole Shadow Realm thing,
right?
That's exclusive to the dub.
Yep.
Because in the original version, it's just death.
Yep. You just die.
You just die, and that's in the original version of this show. So, for example, there's one duel because Pegasus sent guys to kill Kaiba because Pegasus wanted to take over Kaiba Corp.
Right.
So in the dub, it's so funny because there's guys like holding up their hands like this, where there's clearly supposed to be a gun there because there was guns.
I
in the
remember
original.
that. Yep, I've seen the memes.
So they blur it out. Someone steals Kaiba's deck. And so now this whole one episode here, or one or two episodes, changes entirely because of that, because of the inclusion of the Shadow Realm bit. Mm-hmm. In the original version, it was just some master of disguise pretending to be Kaiba and trying to summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon, but it melting because they know it's like, you're not Kaiba. And Mokuba's there the entire time screaming, you're not my brother, who the fuck are you?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was weird.
In the Japanese version, it's just some weird master of disguise.
Interesting.
In the dub, because in the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, Yugi does a mind crush to Kaiba and like banishes the evil from his heart, apparently. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the dub, they explain that this guy is the dark half of Kaiba that Yugi sent to the Shadow Realm, coming back for vengeance.
Yes, so, I remember that. And that was a great angle to take, honestly. They could have done a lot of stuff with that, but that was I was like, oh man, he did really fuck him up in that first duel. And I remember when he mind crushed him. So this is the product of that. It makes sense.
It's one of the things. So yeah, the dub really takes a lot of liberties and takes things their own way. And it's not always censorship. They just get very creative with the world they built here. Mm-hmm. But as the show goes on, there are some moments where it's like, okay, they just didn't want to show that or this. They remove the idea of cleavage from existing.
Sure. Yeah, right.
There's a lot of panning up and down shots on Mai's body that they cut out because it's like, we don't need to focus on the sexy blonde lady here. This is supposed to be for kids.
It's supposed to be for kids to buy our cards. Exactly. And I think like they really leaned into that, as we said, as time went along, because I think we did a watch of the first 3 episodes of the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, yeah, but then
Yes.
then the audio got corrupted.
The audio, so we never released it, but we have that context. But like when you think about Duelist Kingdom compared to that, it's like, man, because the first maybe 10 minutes of that whole first episode in Go Rush are explaining the rules of the game. And this could not be any more different, where it's like, yeah, we're doing this. This is our goal. This is our duel this episode. This person is trying to bring out a dark side of me, and I have to combat him and fight him and win and like destroy my inner demons. And also, let's play a card game. It's like kind of like a little bit of everything, and like the monsters are still there, the magic is still there, but it's just a little less emphasis on, the rules.
Mechanics.
The mechanics of the game.
Because, again, we said 100 times, but I can't keep
didn't
reiterating
exist
it.
at the point.
And, well, not even that. They chose to focus on the characters more. And you could trace that back to both the manga and just the show's runners going, you know what? We have some weird characters here. You have the thug trying to pay for Sister's Eye operation. You have Taya and Tristan who are there for the ride. They have no idea what's going on. Eventually, they throw Taya in a duel with My Valentine.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Taya like never duels again after that, I think.
I think she does in later arcs, but it's only like
you know
here
what
or
arc
there.
I think she dueled in? The one where I don't even know when this was, but you remember that one random arc where they just got sent into the internet?
Yeah, that was Kaiba. It was what was it? Or was that that happened twice.
Yeah. Oh yes, it did happen twice. It was like when she was like dueling against the penguin guy.
Yeah, no, that was in the virtual world arc. That
Virtual
was
world, yes.
because that's when we met the other Kaiba sibling, like what's his name?
There was another Kaiba?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It was the green-haired Kaiba. It was because
Seto
and Mokuba, because Seto and Mokuba were adopted.
Yes, that's
and this
right.
this was Kaiba's actual son, like biological son, who like died, but like his soul got trapped in a virtual program or whatever.
Yes, I forget the name of him, but yes, I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
now.
you know what the stupidest part about that arc is?
It's so many things, but continue.
The dumbest by far is it happened in the middle of the Battle City finals.
Oh, that's right. They did it.
They were on like a boat or a plane or
God.
something to that effect, going to the Battle City finals, and then all that shit happened for like I don't know how many episodes.
God.
Oh, they're like, all right.
It was Noah Kaiba.
Noah Kaiba. Yep.
Noah Kaiba. Yes. Yeah, that was dumb placement. What I mean, we'll talk about that more in the Battle City episode. But shall we finish? Shall we give our finishing thoughts on Duelist Kingdom though?
I mean, sure. I had no idea what I was going to get in for when we started this episode because you're just asking me to talk off the cuff about Duelist Kingdom and the dub version, no less. So in my head, I'm running all the differences, all the censorship, all like the changes in the day-to-day plots of the episodes, all this kind of stuff. The fact they had to cover up so many Harpy Lady boobies.
Yeah. The Harpy Lady boobs. Justice for the Harpy Lady boobs.
Justice for boobies. Justice for boobies.
Justice for boobies.
But, I gotta say, because when we did other Does It Hold Up, where we were talking about very highly critically acclaimed shows.
Yes.
I believe the ones we talked about so far were Ava and Gurren Lagann.
Yeah.
Two shows loved or reviled by everybody. Mm. What we're asking here, because we need to ask ourselves the question, does it hold up? Yes. But also, we have to ask ourselves how Duelist Kingdom is perceived now. Mm-hmm. So, my answer to the question is very simple. I think it holds up a lot better than people give it credit for. So, yes, I definitely think it holds up because it is probably the most character-driven, and I'm only talking about the original Duel Monsters series. I'm talking about from the first duel with Kaiba until spoilers, once the Pharaoh goes off into the afterlife.
Right.
That whole first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Proper. Mm-hmm. That arc is one of the most emotionally charged and character-driven than mechanic-driven.
Yes.
Waken the Dragon gets kind of wacky and magical where the card game is the factor, but there's also it's not a tournament arc. It's very weird.
It's a very strange way to take it for that one, yeah.
So, but I think Duelist Kingdom holds up phenomenally well. I do. And the dub, once you understand the fact that dub was meant for younger kids, you have to take all this into context. You know what I mean? For the audience they were trying to attract, it absolutely still holds up, and it's still wildly charming for an adult to watch, especially one with some nostalgia for the series. Is it probably my favorite iteration of the story? I don't know about that one because I just love the sick twistedness of the manga, like the fact that when Bakura steals Pegasus' eye, he straight up kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Bakura licks the blood off the eyeball in the manga, so it's kind of.
Oh God.
That's the thing. The manga's fucked, and I love the manga.
Damn, that's pretty awesome, actually.
That's the thing. That's why that's a lot of my biases coming here because I love the dark kind of sickness of the manga. You know what I mean? The play kind of like it's never overly gory except for that one scene, but it's playfully dark and really fucked up.
It sounds just a lot more adult than the anime, essentially, especially the dub anime.
Exactly. Yeah. The manga was meant for like teenagers, and this American version show was meant for kids. So. I love
it was done on 4Kids as well, so perfect.
4Kids entertainment, exactly.
4Kids, exactly.
So, but to answer the question, yeah, I think this guy holds up. I really do. It's a fun, lighthearted, yes, in a way, children's cartoon, but there's some great messages here, and you see characters working towards a journey and always attempting to do good things for people, and the conflicts in there are dark. And we barely touched on Kaiba, who becomes a very cool anti-hero. We know he's a dick, but he's a great foil to Joey, where like Seto has good goals to save Mokuba, but he's a terrible person. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Joey was a bad person. He was a bully and a thug, but he's reforming himself.
Right.
So they're great foils. There's a lot of subtle nuance here that a kid can still pick up on and learn from. So
it's really cool.
As children's entertainment, fuck, it definitely holds up. And I still remember it, came out 2001, so what, 21 years later,
Yeah.
I still remember it.
Pretty good.
I still look back on it fondly, and it led me to the manga, and like I said, those first 7 volumes in particular, the original arc, before the pre-Duelist Kingdom stuff, was fantastic, in my opinion. And, it's a fun series, a lot of good characters, a lot of good motivations. It's just a well-constructed, well-animated, and good-sounding show. Mm-hmm. And the dub, like I can clown on it for sometimes being a little too overboard with the censorship, but they had to do what they had to do.
Right. It's a kid show at the end of the day.
It's a damn good kid show. It really is.
It is. I think I kind of echo the sentiment, especially around the audience. I think the audience being children, right, for this specific iteration of the show, for the dub and the American version of the show, it's trying to reach the children audience, and it does it very well. I think if I was a kid, or if I showed it to any kids today, they would be like, "This show's awesome. I love this show so much. It's so perfect."
Totally.
As an adult, trying to rewatch it is a little difficult, I will say. Rewatching it's not easy. I think I tried to rewatch it recently and got maybe 5 episodes in, and I was like, I'm done, man. Like it's just it gets a little bit of but it's not like bad. It's just like it's not for me anymore. You know what I mean? It's like
you're not a kid anymore.
I'm not a kid anymore, right? I have other things that it sucks. I mean, like I can. There's a lot of other things that I think are more applicable to my life right now and better for me to enjoy as mediums. But when I look at this show, I just see like a perfectly constructed children's anime, which is, I think, what it is. And for that reason, I think it does very much hold up, and it does what its aims were, which was from all that censorship, from all that kind of reformation of the franchise. It really achieves its goal very well.
That's what it's supposed to do. That's the thing. It just did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, and I thought it was like very good for me as a kid. But as a kid, I always preferred Battle City because Battle City was like everything up a notch. Everybody's costumes and outfits were way freaking cooler. The cards were cooler. The sacrifice thing was happening. You could attack life points directly.
Even more so because once you got Bakura's in that season, he looked even more like Ryo Asuka from Devilman.
He did,
because he was wearing the striped shirt and the tan shirt. Striped undershirt T-shirt with a tan like button down on top of it. He looked a lot like Ryo there. So
everybody just looked way cooler. The story I thought was maybe not as good, but it was compelling. It was like Merrick and that whole thing, and Kaiba's on the loose doing what Kaiba does. And I like what you mentioned about Kaiba having the whole anti-hero vibe, because he really did throughout the show, and to the point where, you know, his goals were genuine, but he went about them the wrong way. And
he was just a dick of a person.
Yeah, and to have that realization and turn around the character in that way towards the end of the show was really great. But for Duelist Kingdom specifically, I think it does get a lot of hate for how it kind of just completely did not regard for any rules in the game itself. But we've said this way too many times, but the game wasn't finished, and they chose to do something else, which was characters and story. And I think that really worked out for them. And it was a great jumping off point for the rest of the show and the rest of the seasons if they really wanted to harp on the game, which of course they did, because money. But yeah. I think that's everything on Duelist Kingdom, to be honest.
And if you're one of the adult Yu-Gi-Oh fans, like harping on Duelist Kingdom because of the mechanics in the show, lighten the fuck up, please.
Yeah, lighten up. Because when you compare it to Go Rush, like, Go Rush was not that great. It was kind of like, it was kind of funny, but at the same time, it didn't have heart. It didn't really have like a single character that I gave a fuck about. It really didn't. I was just like,
it was kind of cynical. It was almost aware it was a cash grab. You know what I mean?
It really was. It turned from like an actual show into more of a commercial, and for these cards and for the new play style. Exactly. It really carried it that way. And you know, people like that, sure. Like you do you or something, and it's still for children to this day. The dub in the United States, at least, because it's just done so well in that market. But if you want to compare it to Duelist Kingdom, like there's no contest. Duelist Kingdom all the way, because they had actual characters and plot. So yeah, there you go.
There we go.
That was highly more academic than I thought it was going to be.
I knew I was coming in guns and blazing. This was going to be, I knew from the jump this was going to be one of my less emotional episodes, and I definitely put on the big boy academic hat.
Oh yeah, you did.
This wasn't like the Garzy's Wing one that we just recorded recently, where I just screamed a bunch.
We have that good dichotomy. We mentioned variety before. There's some variety here. We do a little bit of everything.
We got variety here.
We got variety. And
so, you know what? Duelist Kingdom holds up, and you can try to rewatch it if you want, or just take your memories and have a great time with it as well.
Yeah,
you know, it's you live your life.
And if you agree, if you disagree, hit us up, put a comment, put a review, whatever you think. And we'll see you next time. It's bad. Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.